Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 191. Without any delay, start explanation. Tang Wulin glanced at White 7 beside him subconsciously and found her returning the glance. He had no choice but to say that the mask was extremely useful not only in concealing one's gaze but muffling one's voice as well. The rest of the white fighters were eyeing each other for the most part. The identities of the fighters were kept in top secret to ensure that their daily lives would not be intruded, especially to prevent the enemy's revenge after they have carried out important missions. Thus, they would never reveal each other's identity even among themselves. Tang Wulin nodded at White 7, and she returned the nod before they continued on a long drive. The Soul Bus entered the highway soon after and drove at full speed. Tang Wulin could sense vaguely that they had entered the mountains after traveling for a day. Night fell and the Soul Bus was still traveling swiftly. No one cared to ask how long before they would arrive, but the food was being distributed to everyone in intervals. Tang Wulin was the most miserable because he was still hungry. The situation of not being fed well immediately weakened his body because his body required a high amount of energy. He was already so famished he could eat a horse. He should have bought some food before he came over to join the mission if he had known earlier. He reminded himself to always remember this lesson so he would always have food before he joined an operation in the future. He swallowed a gulp of saliva as he recalled teacher Mu Yi's scrumptious delights. Mu Yi was in disdain when he found out that Tang Wulin was joining Tang Sect's mission, but he did not stop Tang Wulin. He only reminded Wulin to practice with more effort and further taught him some body cultivation techniques before Wulin left. It was said that Tang Wulin had discovered a unique mineral vein on Star Luo continent, and he was going to conduct some research there to enhance his divine mecha. Tang Wulin did not ask whether it was possible to enhance the divine mecha because he was still too far away from that world. Even if he were to ask, he would most likely not have understood. He would need to spend more time to practice forging as soon as the mission was completed because it had been too long since he last forged. He missed the pair of giant hammers he gave to Yuan and Yehui. Ever since the hammers were used in the competition, Yuan and Yehui was extremely pleased with the weapon that she decided her future battle armor weapon would take the shape of the giant hammers. Tang Wulin felt like laughing the moment he thought about Xie's expression as described by Yuan and Yehui. If there was a word to depict Xie at the time, it would be constipated. Yes, a constipated-like expression as if there was something he wished to say but dared not utter out of fear. Tang Wulin fancied that pair of giant hammers too. It was fairly heavy and powerful, but his golden dragon spear was even better. He would need to practice more of his spear-wielding skills. However, it seemed like the Tang sect has no specific spear-wielding technique unlike the giant hammer's disorder-splitting wind hammer. Yuan and Yehui had already gone to the Tang sect especially to acquire this hammer technique before she left Oluor City so she could study it thoroughly. Tang Wulin wondered where everyone was at the moment. The sky had gradually darkened outside the window. White 7 leaned her head against the window as if she was asleep. Tang Wulin wished to sleep too, but he could not sleep from his hunger pangs. It was already midnight by the time the Soul Bus turned off the highway and traveled along a winding path. It took approximately another hour before the bus seemingly entered a town and finally stopped. The bus was parked near a 3-story small building that seemed to be built of wood. It appeared quaint and dilapidated. The Tang sect symbol adorned the small town which belonged to the Tang sect. Everyone get off the bus and check into your respective rooms. 2 people will share a room. Don't give me some bullshit about how a male and female shouldn't stay in the same room. Figure it out yourselves. Rest early and we'll gather when the sun has risen to 3 poles high tomorrow morning. You can buy some essential items in the small town. I suggest that all of you buy more. We shall depart at high noon. Yes, the white fighters answered and got off the bus. Traveling in a soul vehicle for a whole day was truly an unpleasant experience. Tang Wulin was not bothered by having White 7 in the same room for he was used to sharing rooms when he was a working student. Tang Wulin got off the bus, then stretched his body strenuously. Just as he felt the pleasant sensations of his blood circulating in his body, his stomach began rumbling again. He was even more hungry now. Black 1, can I still buy food at this time? Tang Wulin gathered next to Black One's side and asked softly. Black One darted him a look. Still hungry? I don't think you can. You should try tomorrow morning. All right. Tang Wulin was depressed because he was so hungry. It had been so long since he felt this hungry. He could gobble up a cow. He truly felt like he could do that now. He walked into the tavern to make arrangements for his room. White Seven got the key as she had entered first. Tang Wulin hastily followed her to the room. They went up to the second floor. White Seven stopped at room 315, opened the door and stepped in. Tang Wulin was about to follow her into the room when White Seven suddenly turned around. You know that it's improper for men and women to touch each other's hand even when passing objects, right? White Seven's voice sounded quite pleasant despite the mask's filter. She sounded rather young. Don't worry. I won't have any improper desires, Tang Wulin hastily explained. Very well then. You'll sleep in the corridor. White Seven walked into the room and closed the door with a bang. Tang Wulin was dumbstruck as he stood outside the room looking at the door. He was speechless as he looked at the room's number plate. White Seven was really one of a kind. He turned around and looked at the remaining rooms along the corridor and found everyone else had entered their rooms in pairs. Besides, some were couples too. Anyway, the small tavern was fully occupied. Tang Wulin raised his hand and knocked on the door. The door opened. White Seven stuck out her head. What is it? Tang Wulin answered, how about this? You can wash up first and I won't enter while you're washing. I'll only enter after you're done. I think there should be 2 beds. I'll just sit here and meditate for a while. It's rather disgraceful for me to sleep in the corridor. Can you please be more considerate? Bang! That was the answer for him. A good man doesn't fight with a woman. Tang Wulin thought in his heart. Corridor, it is then. He could actually comprehend the situation because the other person was a female after all. Moreover, it would be inconvenient for them to stay in the same room for they were strangers. Forget it then. Since I have no place to sleep anyway, I might as well go out and take a stroll. I can buy some food in case the shops are still open. Tang Wulin walked outside deep in thought. White Seven was packing her stuff in the room with her ears perked listening to the sounds from the outside. Eh? That fellow is well-mannered. He didn't even say a resentful word or knocked on the door again. He is truly cultured. But, how can I allow a scoundrel to stay in the same room as me? If he was truly daring enough to come in by force. Humph! Tang Wulin walked out of the tavern. The cool and refreshing breeze carried a plant scent that reinvigorated the heart and mind. He took a few deep breaths strenuously. The air has never fulfilled my hunger no matter how refreshing it is. At most, I can perhaps fart more after inhaling more. That's improper. What am I thinking here? The small town was mostly paved with flagstones. Pieces of flagstones were paved neatly exuding a tranquil ambience. The people of the small town seemed to be asleep at this time. Tang Wulin walked quietly on the streets. Soon, he found some shops. There are shops that sell food and even delicatessens as I expected. There should be a shop that sells cooked meat. I want to eat so badly. What a pity, it's closed. A pancake shop, oh my God. It's simply heaven to roll cooked meat in a baked pancake followed with a dash of sauce. A person would always be imagining bountiful food when he was hungry. Tang Wulin's stomach was rumbling like frogs croaking at night. He was sulking as he walked around the town. He came across many of the shops, but none were open. He was famished. Forget about it. I should go hunting then. Tang Wulin looked at his surroundings as he thought of this. He gazed at the direction he was going to take and dashed off into the forest on the fringes of the town. He coaxed his mind gently as blue-silver emperor vines spread out from his body. The blue-silver emperor had evolved at sea before staying in Star Luo City, and Tang Wulin had yet to unleash it in its natural environment. At the moment when the vines had just begun to spread outward, he could immediately sense that the surrounding forest appeared brighter. He did not even need the purple demon eyes to clearly perceive his surroundings in the absence of light. The blue-silver emperor vines not only enhanced his vision but also communicated with all the surrounding plants. It was as if there was a large, invisible net that was spreading outward at high speed, rapidly expanding his mind while heightening his senses. The feeling was truly amazing. Tang Wulin delayed no further in sitting cross-legged at the same spot. At that moment, he felt the soul power in his body double. The thick, dense origin energy was accumulating along the blue-silver emperor vines in all directions. Eating provided the nutrients for conversion to energy. The origin energy absorbed through the blue-silver emperor was now innumerably more powerful than before. Tang Wulin could undoubtedly feel his soul power amplify. Is this the true benefit of the blue-silver emperor? It was not only his soul power, but even his spiritual world that was growing more accessible. This was simply splendid. He entered the meditative state soon after. His surroundings became tranquil except for the blades of the blue-silver emperor that were entangled among the plants. His mind expanded progressively until Tang Wulin could clearly feel the plant's kindness and worship of his aura. The blue-silver emperor's aura triggered the plant's emerging intelligence so much so that the plants were continuously transferring the origin energy to Tang Wulin. He would then absorb a portion of the origin energy through his breath while deflecting the remaining portion into the surroundings. The plant's regurgitation effect on the origin energy tainted with blue-silver emperor's aura far exceeded their absorption ability. Tang Wulin was now the favorite of the floras. All the plants were enlivened by his arrival. As Tang Wulin awakened from his meditation, the sounds of bugs and birds chirping grew louder. The sun illuminated every corner of the land as the plants began photosynthesizing. Tang Wulin was disturbed as he had missed the hour to cultivate purple demon eyes. Normally, this would have been impossible because he had devised his own biological clock. His face showed a faint smile because last night's cultivation was truly amazing. He no longer felt hungry but could apparently feel his soul power being elevated. If he were to cultivate at this rate, he would only need another 1 or 2 years to achieve rank 50. This was precisely the blue-silver emperor's power. Tang Wulin stretched himself satisfyingly before he sprung up. It's time for a meal, and it's morning, so the shops should be open. Tang Wulin emerged from the forest and returned to the small town. Since it was still morning, there was not much activity in the tavern. As expected, the shops in the small town were already opened with whiffs of sweet scents blowing into his face. Tang Wulin rushed to the delicatessen at once. The scent of cooked meat was from the deli where a huge pot filled with big chunks of beef was cooking at the doorstep. "Boss, are you open for business?" Tang Wulin swallowed a gulp of saliva hastily. "Not yet, the meat will need to cook for a while." The obese boss came walking over with a smile on his face and added ingredients into the pot. "Can I place an order in advance?" Tang Wulin asked eagerly before removing some Star Luo Empire coins which he had acquired earlier. "Of course you can." "Little brother, how much do you want?" the boss asked cheerfully. Tang Wulin answered, "I'll take all you have." The boss was stunned for a moment. "All I have? You must be joking." Tang Wulin spoke earnestly, "Of course not. I can pay you in advance." "Boss, how much cooked food can you make in a morning?" The boss answered, "You must be one of the fighters who arrived last night, right? A white fighter's credit shouldn't be much of a problem. My shop may not be big, but only my shop sells cooked food in this town. I still have a lot of food in my ice cellar. So, if you're asking for all the food I have a lot. I have at least 8 pounds. Could it be you want all 8 pounds? Tang Wulin was overjoyed in his heart. He hastily inquired further, "They all cooked meat?" I'll need to have some in my storage anyhow, and I have many varieties. The small town cannot consume that much, so I send some to the city periodically. Our cooked meats are beef, mutton, and pork using biodynamic agriculture, so it tastes better than the ones in the city. It's very popular. I'll take it all." Tang Wulin paid the boss without the slightest hesitation. "Please help me pack these up, and I'll come to pick it up later." Though you have to prepare it before noon. Do you think you can do it? Plenty is no plague. 8 pounds will be enough for his consumption for 20 days. The boss stared at him in bewilderment. Young lad, what are you going to do with so much cooked meat? Of course it's for me to eat. All right, please prepare it for me then. I think the meat here is almost cooked. I'll take a bite first. You can bill me later. Tang Wulin stretched his hand and picked up a chunk of cooked meat from the pot. He immediately took big mouthfuls, not worrying about the heat. With his Golden Dragon King bloodline's body constitution, the temperature barely affected him. The small town's pace was slower than the city's. The city would have been busy by now, but the small town had just awakened. Yesterday's hunger had a negative psychological impact on Tang Wulin. He strolled around the small town and relied on his many storage soul tools to place orders for the food in the shops, eating as he shopped. Finally, he felt full after the stroll. The sun had already risen by 3 poles when Tang Wulin returned to the tavern. The fighters were only now waking up. It was rather quiet as hardly anyone chatted due to the mask's obstruction. Everyone was minding their own business. Tang Wulin realized there was nowhere he could go when he walked into the tavern. White Seven had thrown him out last night, so she would probably not allow him into the room. He wondered if she was awake. Tang Wulin regarded White Seven as an acquaintance. He had no feelings for her. It was improper for men and women to have physical contact, and he was not used to sleeping in the same room with a girl. Moreover, he had benefited from yesterday's meditation in the forest, so his mood was utterly unaffected by his predicament. Soon, Black One appeared on the outside of the tavern's entrance. In a short while, many white fighters hurriedly gathered outside the tavern. Black One made a head count and spoke with a deep voice. "All right, you're temporarily dismissed so you can settle your personal affairs. We'll depart in the afternoon." "Yes," answered the group in unison respectfully. After the dismissal, Tang Wulin took a stroll to where he had ordered his food. He had stored a variety of food in his storage box and did not have to worry about being hungry again, as the food he bought would last him a month even with his voracious appetite. "You don't have anything to sell? How long do I still have to wait?" On the way back, he heard the other fighters purchasing food, but the shops were out of food. Time was needed to prepare additional food, so the fighters would have to wait patiently. Tang Wulin smirked. "You're going to have to wait. Whose problem is it when you wake up late? It's the early bird that catches the worm." He found a place to sit when he returned to the tavern while waiting to depart. Meanwhile, Tang Wulin's gaze held still for a moment as he inadvertently saw White Seven returning with a glass of fruit juice in her hand. White Seven saw him as well. She walked slowly toward him, seeing that he was bored sitting there. "Hey, where were you last night?" White Seven asked. Tang Wulin answered, "I found a place outside to meditate." White Seven nodded as she walked into the tavern. Tang Wulin thought to himself, "She's one fussy, arrogant girl." The group departed in the afternoon. They did not board a bus this time because there was no way a bus could maneuver through the mountains. To reach their destination, they would need to go on foot. However, it was certainly not a problem for anyone, as each of them had achieved at least 4 rings. Under Black One's lead, they marched deeper into the forest. Upon entering the forest, Tang Wulin could immediately feel the kindness radiating from the surrounding plants due to last night's meditation. The plants were like his children that admired him with awe. Simultaneously, Tang Wulin's soul power was fluctuating intensely. The origin energy surged within his body. Even when not meditating, he was being subtly transformed under the influence of the origin energy. "You look a little odd. Isn't there an aura emanating from your body?" asked White Seven as she walked past Tang Wulin. Tang Wulin shrugged. "How do I know?" White Seven frowned under her mask. How did his aura suddenly turn fresh and fragrant? Moreover, there's a faint sense of harmony that's radiating from his body. White Seven had potent spiritual powers, especially her acute senses. It suddenly dawned upon her that White Three's martial soul was related to plants. That explained why a plant-type soul master would have increased powers in the forest. The horde advanced swiftly despite the forest's rugged terrain. The forest's atmosphere in the afternoon was exuberant and refreshing. With his origin energy accumulating, Tang Wulin felt increasingly energetic. The terrain's elevation was now higher as they had trekked for over 2 hours. It was becoming an arduous climb. Black One studied the weather and spoke urgently, "We'll need to pick up the pace a little. Otherwise, we won't arrive before sundown. Everyone follow closely and don't fall behind." He then stretched his legs and sped forward. The white fighters stepped forward rapidly one after another behind him. Although their cultivation had improved significantly, it was still difficult to assess their rankings. Tang Wulin was running like a fleeting cheetah, its gait sturdy yet balanced. White 7 appeared as agile by his side. Her agility gave her the speed in overcoming the obstacles in the forest and also conserved her energy. Just as how she could tell that Tang Wulin was a plant-type soul master, Tang Wulin could also figure out that White 7 was an agility-type soul master. Finally, after crossing a few mountains, they arrived at the top of a high mountain peak just as dusk was approaching. Vegetation was sparse here. It was, at least, 2,000 meters above sea level with snow covering the ground. The temperature had dropped quite a bit. There was a stone cottage on the mountain peak. It could sense their presence as someone walked out from the cottage. The tall elderly man was hunched. He held an ebony cane in his hand. "Elder Wu." Black One strode forward and saluted the elderly man with much respect. Tang Wulin was surprised. Black One already had a high ranking in the Battle Soul Hall. He was, at least, an 8-ring Dolor rank powerhouse, and also a 3-word battle armor master. Yet, he treated this ailing elderly man with such respect. It was apparent that this elderly man was no ordinary person. Elder Wu nodded to Black One as his gaze swept through the 30 white fighters standing behind Black One. He raised his head ever so slightly and spoke, "The quality of this batch of youths is acceptable. They have prepared well." Black One nodded. "Get ready then." Elder Wu did not speak much as he walked toward the summit next to his stone cottage. Black One turned around to face the white fighters. "I've already briefed you on this mission. What you have to do is simple. Stay as long as you can in Dragon Valley. This is the best opportunity for all of you to benefit from the Battle Soul Hall. Anyone who is capable of staying for more than 3 months will be immediately promoted to a yellow fighter. Those who stay for less than a month will be dismissed as a fighter. Will it be better the longer one stays in Dragon Valley?" Tang Wulin's heart skipped a beat since he was curious about the Dragon Valley. Elder Wu had already walked to the side of the summit's cliff. He tapped the ground lightly with his ebony cane. A rush of surging soul power suddenly burst forth from his body. His soul rings had crept up his body. Yellow, yellow, purple, 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 black, 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 black. Amazingly, there were a total of 9 soul rings. He was a 9-ring title Dolor. Many of the white fighters unwittingly stood upright upon seeing those brilliant 9 soul rings. A title Dolor was the peak in a soul master's world. It was also the goal which everyone pursued diligently. A white soul ring rippled through Elder Wu's body. It was only then that they saw beams of light radiating from beneath Elder Wu's feet. They were in awe as the light patterns were complicated, yet appeared magnificent. The lights were like soul circuits but looked more primitive. Those white fighters aware of soul circuits could not help frowning because these light patterns did not belong to any type of modern soul circuits. The light patterns radiated outward, extending to a radius of 50 meters. Mist arose from the light beams as its aura grew in intensity. Elder Wu's soul power kept increasing, so much so he was using his soul power to illuminate the light beams beneath his feet. Tang Wulin stood there feeling his pulsating heartbeat. He felt a little queer as if something was summoning him. His heart skipped a beat each time a white soul ring rippled, but his heart was thumping stronger than usual. His blood surging with a pulsating heartbeat, Tang Wulin felt as if his arteries and veins were about to explode. He was trying his best to control the aura enveloping his body. Elder Wu suddenly raised the ebony cane in his hand as he straightened his hunched back. In the next instant, he turned into an awakening dragon. There was no longer any glistening soul ring. His body began to swell, while a pair of enormous wings spread out behind his back. Finally, he was a 15-meter-long giant dragon with its entire body shimmering in bluish-purple radiance. Is this the martial soul avatar? A 7-ring soul sage's unique ability? Elder Wu's martial soul was akin to the legendary martial soul blue electric overlord dragon. Roar, snarled Elder Wu. The white light fluctuating on the ground suddenly grew in intensity. The light ripples formed a halo with a multitude of colors and transformed into a column of light that surged skyward. The sky was torn apart by the light pillar. The multicolored radiance then diffused, revealing an enormous gap. This was... The legion of white fighters gawked in bewilderment at the pitch-black gap in the sky. This was the first time anyone had ever seen such a remarkable and bizarre sight. When you face an imminent crisis in Dragon Valley, activate the Dragon Pearl. Then you'll be teleported out. Begin to enter. Black One hollered as his body flashed past and halted behind a white fighter. He grabbed hold of the white fighter's shoulder while his other hand grabbed the companion's shoulder. Hold your partner's hand. The two white fighters promptly held each other's palm and, in the next moment, Black One extended his arms and threw them into the gaping black hole. The two figures plunged into the breach and vanished. Hold hands. Black One's figure sped by reaching both Tang Wulin and White Seven, who were second in line. Tang Wulin turned to look at White Seven and extended his right arm. White Seven was reluctant, but she eventually reached out to hold his hand. Both of them leapt as if they were treading on clouds and floating on mist. They headed straight toward the breach. The instant they took flight, Tang Wulin felt White Seven's tightening grip on his hand, revealing her anxiety. Is she afraid? She's a fighter, but she's so timid. The thought occupied his mind when Tang Wulin felt his vision go dark. Soon, he felt the sky and earth twirling and whirling. Everything started to blur, and he felt as if space itself was warped. Acting on reflex, he clutched White Seven's hand tightly. The tugging persisted for a while in the darkness. Suddenly, light reappeared. Then, a weightless feeling. Tang Wulin realized then that they were free falling. He quickly drew a deep breath to activate the soul power within him. However, he did not notice that a special energy had channeled into him. His soul power was suppressed until he could hardly unleash an ounce of it. Black One had mentioned that they would be unable to utilize their martial souls in Dragon Valley. Is this what he meant? As expected, Tang Wulin could not activate his blue-silver grass. Meanwhile, they were plummeting at a blinding speed. Ah! My martial soul! White Seven screamed. She was obviously flustered, and she struggled with all her might. Tang Wulin looked down. The ground was coming up fast toward them. With his quick wit, he yanked White Seven toward him and hugged her tightly. As soon as he touched the ground, he rolled sideways with White Seven still in his embrace. He was blessed with the Golden Dragon King bloodline, which gave him formidable strength. He had broken much of the fall with his powerful legs. Rolling upon impact, he managed to disperse the remaining energy. White Seven's arms were tightly wrapped around his neck. Her body shivered as she was obviously in shock. Tang Wulin had wrapped his arms around her waist. His arms acted as supports to cushion their fall. By the time they stopped moving, White Seven was prostrated on Wulin's chest, and her petite frame shaking. Her body was soft and supple with a sweet scent. Wulin felt awkward with her body pressing on his chest. Ua! White Seven had also noticed the impropriety of their situation. She quickly shoved him away, putting some distance between their bodies. Tang Wulin gently nudged her and sat up. White Seven's breathing was a little labored. Simultaneously, they looked up at the cloudless, azure sky. We seem to have been sent to another dimension, Tang Wulin said, amazed. White Seven appeared to have calmed down. She stood up abruptly and executed a few jumps on the spot. What other dimension? This is a small world in a dimensional rift. A small world. Tang Wulin looked at her in surprise. White Seven said, don't you know, on Star Luo continent, there are many similar small dimensional rifts. A majority of them are highly unstable and may be destroyed at any time. But there are also a few dimensional rifts that are stable with their interiors connected to various unique places. These places are like fragmented continents. They have their own ecosystems but aren't planets. They are a world unto its own. If the dimensional rift becomes unstable, these small worlds could be destroyed. Moreover, all the small worlds are attached to the big worlds. For example, Dolor Star is a big world. When the small world is forming, it represents a segment of the big world. How did you become a white fighter? Haven't you taken the small world space theory class? Of course, Tang Wulin had not. This was knowledge that was exclusive to Star Luo continent. After White Seven's exposition, which he did not fully comprehend, he got the impression that Star Luo continent was indeed unique and amazing. I can't activate my soul power and my martial soul too, remarked Tang Wulin to White Seven. I can't as well, but my physique is still intact, murmured White Seven. Tang Wulin nodded. He was not flustered because he was not your typical soul master. Even without his soul power, he had his bloodline power and his inborn superhuman strength. His bloodline ring was not affected by soul power, thus, his strength remained. However, Tang Wulin had no intention of using his bloodline ring on a whim, because it would be too conspicuous. News of Shrek Academy's victory over Monster Academy had spread throughout Star Luo continent. He was reluctant to reveal his identity as he did not want to be discriminated, like a mouse in a crowded street in Star Luo continent's circle of soul masters. If White Seven knew his identity, he was afraid that they would not be able to cooperate further. After all, in her eyes, he was still an outsider. Since the other soul masters accomplished their missions in Dragon Valley without revealing their identities, he should be able to do it too. He would expose his bloodline ring only as a last resort. Tang Wulin got up. His spiritual powers stirred as he instinctively connected to his storage space. Fortunately, although his soul power was suppressed, he managed to use his storage soul tool. He blended it with his spiritual power and soul power. His spiritual power consumption was higher than usual. A light flashed. Two small hammers appeared in Tang Wulin's hands. Concurrently, two daggers appeared in White Seven's hands. Obviously, she was also prepared. When she glanced at the 2,000 refined heavy silver hammers unleashed by Tang Wulin, White Seven asked incredulously, "You're also a blacksmith?" Tang Wulin nodded. Of course. In Dragon Valley, it would be better if we had a mecha. Too bad. White Seven snorted, "Don't you wish? In this small world, you can't use a mecha even if you had one. The power source for a mecha is still soul power. Even the soul power batteries would be suppressed here. There seems to be a mechanism suppressing soul power in this small world. I've heard that whoever fully understands the dynamics of the small worlds will be able to alter the structure of the continent Soul Master's realm." Oh? Tang Wulin queried, "Has anyone understood it then?" White Seven shook her head. Not yet. Soul Masters with 5 rings and above can't enter this space. It may be possible that these Soul Masters won't be suppressed in here, but will be rejected by the space instead, making them unable to enter this small world. It's not easy to study and understand the dynamics of a small world. Stop thinking and let's explore the area. It has been said that the fighters who stayed in Dragon Valley for a certain duration would feel as though they were born anew when they got out. Tang Wulin nodded. He wielded his 1,000 refined heavy silver hammers in his hands and took the lead. He had, only now, begun paying attention to his surroundings. They seemed to be in a hilly area. There was vegetation around them, but it was not lush. They stood atop a hill and gazed into the distance. However, they could not see far due to the mist. In the unseen world, Tang Wulin was suddenly overcome with sadness. Even he himself was uncertain why such a feeling would arise, but he had the emotion nonetheless. No animals were seen. The entire small world appeared tranquil. Tang Wulin surveyed his location before he commenced walking. White Seven clasped her daggers as she followed behind him. They traversed several hills, finally, reaching an open space in the distance. After they started their journey, Tang Wulin noticed a subtle difference in this world. The gravity of this small world was slightly stronger than Star Luo continent's. It was not much stronger, only about 0.5 times. That was why they did not feel it initially. However, as time went by, it became apparent. After walking for about 2 hours, White 7 was gasping. With her four-ring Soul Master's physique, she would not be in such a state normally. On the other hand, Tang Wulin, with his gritty physique, was hardly affected. Shall we rest a while? Tang Wulin turned to look at White 7. White 7 nodded. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.